Sit! Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
He's Garret Price.
How's it going?
No corn this episode, but this is the closest we are to the NFL season. We had a long talk before the show. It's like, do we play because we never did two shows during the week.
Right.
We're like, dude, do we do corn the first or the second? And then I was like, oh, we should do it the second show because that's the closest to the season. And then Garrett's like, well, people aren't going to understand this is a kickoff of the season. These episodes kickoff week. We should do it first. We let Matt decide.
I said both.
Matt said both. You did too. We're like, you know what? You're right. The first show of the first week should kick off. That's what we've traditionally done. Because honestly, the corn intro is my favorite thing.
It's pretty fun.
It's my favorite thing. Besides this conversation that we had right before this show about Deadpool and Wolverine, and
The half-hour conversation we just had.
And now I just want to see it.
Yeah, so Matt
So this
hasn't seen
episode
Deadpool,
brought
Wolverine.
to you by Deadpool and Wolverine.
And me and
Definitely
Garret,
a sponsor.
in the most vaguely way possible, not to spoil anything, talked about for 15 minutes straight about how great Deadpool and Wolverine is.
Yeah. We may have given away a couple things, but we tried our best.
But what's good is, like, even the stuff we gave away, there's so much stuff in there, he'll forget what he even
100
said.
million
And then it
things,
just pop
yes.
like, oh, they said that. Oh, you're right. Oh, it's
I have the memory of a fish. This is gonna work out just fine.
Dude.
we're agreeing.
Me too. Well, it's like, you don't remember anything. I was like, you know how much stuff I have going on in my brain? I can't remember anything. I was like, but miraculously, I'll remember like random football stats. It's the only thing my brain retains. That's why I do this for a
Movie
living.
quotes, song titles, and football facts.
It is a weird thing, like in life, where they're like, oh, like sing this, like name a song like that you know by heart, like Whitney Houston. I want to dance with somebody, for example.
Sure.
Like, sing me all the lyrics to Whitney Houston. I want to dance with somebody. You're like, oh, I don't know. Like, I know the chord, like, but then when the song's playing,
Oh, it's
Then
on.
you can sing every
you know
word.
all the
Oh,
words. Like, it's weird how like your brain like switches on, like opens that door.
Yeah.
You
But
got a
there's-
lot of stuff trapped up there.
Yeah.
It is a matter of finding it.
Isn't that weird though? Like, there's so many songs I know by heart, but if you told me to sing them to you, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like,
Happy birthday.
It is all about the access.
I know parts of that.
I know good chunks of it.
Get me started, and I can get a guy. I can sing
What'd
the
you
rest.
say about ass sex?
What did I say about ass?
A lot of BS going on around here. A lot of BS. A lot of butt stuff.
So
All
much
right, so we're
Bible
back
study.
with bold predictions. Let's dive in, shall we?
As long as it's not the ass sex.
Only if you say please.
All right, let's do it.
Whoa.
The bold prediction.
Oh.
Come on.
All right, I'll put my pants back on. All right, my first bold prediction. I ended with the tight end. Don't get any funny ideas over there.
Stop it.
Okay.
Stop it.
I have the worst typing. Name.
Dude, we all know because we're on text message chains with you that you are the worst
The best
typer.
was Jared one time. He was like, what do you do? Type with your freaking nose? Like,
That was the best.
That was the best.
Rich, do you type with your nose? I got fat thumbs. So my next bold prediction is Cole.
Cole Kmet?
Cole Kmet.
He's back.
Yes. I don't know where it came from. Dalton Kincaid will have 100+ receptions. Now, you're like, oh, no big deal. Only 9 tight ends in NFL history have caught 100 receptions in NFL history.
Evan Ingram did it last year.
He did. He made
Second most of all time.
He made it 9, second most of all time. Only one person has done it multiple times, and that's Travis Kelce, who's done it 3 times. We talk about vacated targets. Like I said before, I knew that the Chargers were number 1.
Sure.
I know the Bills are number 2 because a lot of this Kincaid research went there. I spent a lot of time on vacated targets. You think it'd be a simple thing to Google vacated targets, then you get multiple numbers. Now you got to really kind of do some more research.
And I just went with my first one. That's why I ended up with 3.
Nice.
But you were only doing receivers. He was doing everybody.
You cross-referenced.
Yes. So Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, they leave, and they had 2 of the most receiving yards on the league, and they had the 3rd and first most targets on the team. The Bills have 317 vacated targets, about 58.1% of those. 545 they threw last year. All they did to this team was add Martavis Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Curtis Samuel. That's all they did. And on top of that,
Keon Coleman.
And Keon Coleman.
Well, and Keon Coleman. Sorry.
All they did was add their 3 main receivers.
They took away a lot, though, too.
Yeah, but Keon Coleman's going to see a ton this year. And Marquez is, he doesn't even count.
We didn't say how many catches. We said targets. So you could throw it to him. And just
when you look at last year, what he did as a rookie and early in his football career here, Kincaid saw his rookie year 91 targets. Caught 73 of those for 673 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. Alone. Caught 82% of his targets and was the first look in the offense on only 18% of those. So he was really the secondary option in the passing game. Third, if you want to be honest, in his passing game. Still caught 73 balls for 673 yards and 2 touchdowns and still had 91 targets. This year, he's going to be the first look in this offense. He's going to be the first read in this offense. So we kind of talked about the last episode. The average number 1 receiver, you mentioned even for the Kyle Pitts reference. So I'll go back to that. Saw about 136 targets. So if you extrapolate that, you have 136 targets on the low end, I'll say, for Dalton Kincaid, because I think it will exceed that. Mm-hmm. And you take his catch rate of 18%, then he really only needs, that equals 112 receptions. So he needs 122 targets at his catch rate to reach 100 receptions. So this is very, very doable for Dalton Kincaid. It's the reason why I had him as my tight end 1 in this amongst all tight ends as a finish in PPR leagues and not like a guy like Kyle Pitts, which again, that's a bold prediction, so I respect it.
Sure.
And I think there's 2 receivers in the NFL that are the number 1 looks in their offense.
2 tight ends, you mean? 2
tight ends. I think it's Mark Andrews and Dalton Kincaid. They're the clear cut. You can make an argument for Travis Kelce. Yeah. And I'll listen to that, and I'll be okay with that too. But you go from Mark Andrews to a team that throws the ball just about the least in the NFL to the team that throws the ball the most in the NFL. And I think that's where the difference is going to be between Dalton Kincaid and Mark Andrews and where they finish. I remember I had Mark Andrews as my number 2 overall tight end and Dalton Kincaid as my number 1. I think Dalton Kincaid becomes the 10th tight end in NFL history to break the 100 receptions mark, and I help propel him to be the tight end 1 overall. Now he'll need some touchdowns. He only had 2 last year, so I expect that to get higher as well. Twice as many.
Pitts wishes he had that. If he did, he'd be the tight end 1.
He would be the tight end 1. So I'm trying to tell people.
I think he's going to finish like the low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2 point range, somewhere right around there, maybe like even wide receiver 10, and get right around that 250 fantasy football points and become that wide receiver 1 and become the 10th NFL tight end ever to break that mold.
I think things line up really nice for him as far as just the available targets, the people that are on the team. So I think there's definitely an avenue for him to get there. I love that you put it on this show. I don't know that me personally, I don't know that I feel that it's that bold because I believe in it that much though. You know what I mean? There's a time when things feel a little uncomfortable, and I feel like, oh, that's a bold one. For me, this one doesn't even feel that uncomfortable. So to me, it's not like crazy out there.
Well, and that's why I went to 100+ receptions instead of just finishing as tight end 1, is because only 9 tight ends have ever done it.
Yeah.
So that's where the boldness
is. Yeah, absolutely.
It's actually catching 100 footballs. Like a ton have gotten to the 85, 90 something range. Not many get to, like George Kittle's never got to the 100.
Sure. The drum beat all off season has kind of been from people that we've talked to is they're going to funnel that offense through him as well. So they really like him enough to get rid of some pretty key weapons in this offense in the offseason, based probably off what they saw at the end of last year. So I would expect that to kind of continue this season. So as long as he stays healthy, I think this is well within his range.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about it when we were doing the tight end show. Even though I had him, it was either 3rd or 4th, like ranked. I was like, it wouldn't surprise me if he was the number 1 overall guy, and partly because of the target share that he's going to get. So I could absolutely see a world where like it's a lot, like it's tough, but it's definitely in the realm of possibility with how many targets he's going to get that he could hit the 100 mark.
Yeah, it's like for me, the way I look at it is like, oh, I met this girl in college, and she was just a girl in college, and now she's
shotgunning.
And then we got married, and now she's a neurosurgeon. like I hit the pay dirt with my husband, Dalton Kincaid. Like it just all worked out so perfectly. Like here I was, just a young boy in love with a great tight end, you know what I mean? And here he is flourishing, being my sugar mama. So I love it. It really worked out for me.
All right.
Sometimes you fall in love and they end up like just,
you love who you love.
Yeah, they like to sit around and like eat bacon and not contribute. But not this guy.
Not this guy.
Neurosurgeon.
Not a bacon non-contributor.
No, he supplies the bacon.
He's not
bringing home the bacon.
Not an asker. He's a doer.
There you go.
All right. So both of mine, or a couple of mine, one of these should have been split up and done last show, but my stuff disappeared. So these are a little bit on the less bold side, right?
Okay.
Because I wanted to start off.
Exhibit A. Start off pretty on.
All right.
Lowercase bold.
So A.T. Perry emerges as a starting wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints and puts up flex-worthy numbers
over Rashad
this
Shaheed
season. Not necessarily.
Okay. You think they've got 3 receivers? Derek Carr is supplying 3 of them.
Listen, this is only flex.
Bold, bro.
Only
Super Bowl.
Only flex worthy here, right? Not nothing crazy. Not wide receiver 3 numbers, just flex worthy. So
not
he's in
Xavier worthy.
Gotcha.
Flex worthy.
Worthy. So the Saints had the 9th most pass attempts last year, with 606, tied with the not Detroit Tigers, Detroit Lions.
Good for them.
Yes, I mean obviously.
I love talking to you guys so much.
They had 108 vacated targets last year, 85 by the wide receivers, and added no one of note at the wide receiver position. Right? They got rid of what's his name, Michael Thomas. I can't even remember his name anymore.
Used to be wide receiver 1.
Used to be wide receiver 1.
Now
he can't. See, this is my brain not working anymore. And what I really like about him is he offers some size that no one else on the team does. He's nearly 6'4", over 200 pounds, and was still able to get downfield and blaze. I think he had a 4.47 40 coming out. But last year in a limited kind of showcase towards the end of the season, he did some good things, had some nice games. But when you look at it, on only 18 targets, he had 12 receptions, 246 yards, and 4 touchdowns, and averaged over 20 yards per catch, 20.5 yards per catch. So you kind of circle back to those 105 targets, obviously, or 100. Sorry, 100. How many did I say? 108 vacated targets. So everything's really small. I had to make it small so I could see it. You circle back around to that number, and obviously it's not all going to go to him. So you give some of that to Rashad Shaheed. I think Chris Olave at 138 targets is probably a pretty good number for him. I don't want to give him get too crazy with him and give him 160 or something like that. I think 138, just with kind of how he operates. For me, he's not an overly physical guy, so I could see him missing some time as well with some dings and boo-boos and that kind of stuff. Maybe just game here or there, nothing crazy. But 138 targets just kind of felt good for him. So you can get Rashad pretty easily, give him an extra 25. He's up to 100. And kind of give the rest on to A.T. Perry. It's only an extra 60, I think, because there was 85 targets from the wide receivers alone. So I'm working with that 85 number. So 25 goes to Rashad, and then 60 goes to A.T. on top of the 18 that he already had. Gets him to 78 targets. So 78 targets is kind of where he was at. And if you just use the numbers from last year, 20.5 is crazy, right? So that's like the high water mark, crazy number. He would be at 52 receptions, 1,066 yards, and I just gave him the same 4 touchdowns. That was good for 182.6 fantasy points. If you lessen it, I just lessened it down to like 17, right? It's reasonable. He is a downfield, big kind of play type of guy. I didn't want to go too nuts, so I gave him 17. That gets you to the 164.4. And the 182.6 would have been good for wide receiver 36 last year. So that's the high water mark with the 20.5 and just giving him 78 targets. The 164.4 is good for wide receiver 40. So it's not like anything crazy. And that would have been 52 receptions. 884 yards and just the 4 touchdowns. I didn't want to go crazy and give him a bunch of touchdowns because it's a fluky, weird stat. I didn't want to give, but at 6'5", he's really one of the only red zone threats there. That's kind of
him and Juwan Johnson.
So him and Juwan Johnson are it. So as far as big red zone threats, so that's kind of it. I don't have anything else. I don't think, but I think it's easy to paint a picture or an avenue for him to get there, and he's going to be a guy that Rachaad Shaheed and Chris Olave both almost. None of them are going to be that outside guy. He's going to be that starting outside wide receiver, the big X
Z.
Or Z. Is it X or Z?
X is your traditional big-bodied wide receiver. X. Z is your traditional field stretcher. NFL teams mix it up so much now, but
sure.
I really didn't use AT just to stretch it, go down and
he's going to be a stretch the field, toss it up type of guy. So
which he can do. He does that well. Like
right.
He can go get the football. He showed it. He showed some stuff last year as a rookie.
He did, and so I think there's an avenue for him to be fantasy relevant somewhat on maybe a bye week basis or something like that. Mm-hmm. And who knows where it grows after that? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He could end up unseating Rachaad Shaheed in the future. I like Shaheed better, but who knows?
I mean, he's a chia pet of wide receiver force. Let's just water it and see what happens. I mean, you might get it with like an afro. You might get a chihuahua.
It might just turn brown and fall off.
Yeah, you might get that mustache from some weird guy. Yeah. Drives a van, offers free candy.
Isn't it weird how the mind works sometimes? So like you were talking about targets, and I was like, oh man, you didn't give Taysom Hill any targets. And then I was thinking like, well, Taysom Hill's a quarterback, but he's also a tight end, so maybe he could just throw himself the ball. And then I pictured Taysom Hill throwing himself a pass and like running the other side, catching it. And then my brain was like, I wonder what the world record is for longest pass to yourself. So that's where my mind went.
Yeah, he wasn't even listening to you.
I'm glad I was that boring.
He was that Mr. Perfect from WWF when he threw himself the football and it was slow motion and then ran down and caught it for the touchdown.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I wonder what the world record is for longest pass.
Mr. Perfect.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. Now I'm going to look it up after the show.
He's dead.
Wow, that got depressing.
Yeah, that's when you die.
All right.
That's what happens when you die.
You're dead when you die.
Allegedly. Hey, Dynasty Nerds, want to revolutionize your fantasy experience? Look no further than Sleeper, the cutting-edge platform now featuring our Dynasty GM tool. Get unparalleled Dynasty insights right where you play. But that's not all. Sleeper's new picks product is a game changer. It's incredibly simple. Choose 2 to 8 players and predict if they'll perform above or below their projected stats. No complex lineups, no salary caps. Make picks before or during live games for NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and more. Here's the kicker. You can win up to 100 times your cash with just a few correct picks. And it gets better. Use our promo code NERDS and Sleeper will match your first deposit 100% up to $100. That's free cash to play with, folks. Ready to dominate? Use the link on our podcast description or enter the promo code NERDS when you sign up. Double your deposit, access to Dynasty GM, and start winning big with Sleeper picks.
I'm done. I'll see you guys later.
I'll find out.
I just heard that when you die, you're dead. I'm done.
Wait, who did he want to send to Denver?
Mile Die Stadium. It was some guy with sickle cell.
For the guy from Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. The University of Pittsburgh.
The University of Pittsburgh.
John Brown.
John Brown.
It was John Brown.
Yep, Mile Die Stadium. That was my first ever episode, by the way.
Was it really?
That was my first ever episode. We were in the old studio.
Sure.
Uh-huh. Different room. Yeah.
Yeah.
First episode ever.
Tristan was just yelling at us, by the way. He knows that.
He knew it. He was ready.
He was yelling at us.
Absolutely. All right. My first hot take, bold prediction of the show.
Sickle cell.
Oh, every time I think of it's so bad.
It's the altitude.
I know, but every time somebody says sickle cell, all I think about is Tupac.
Yeah.
What do you want? Sickle cell?
Yeah. Ditto.
That's all I think about is Tupac every time.
Ditto.
Anyway, sorry. Go, Garrett.
All right. This one's a little different than a lot of our other bold predictions. I had a little fun with this one.
All right, Mob Deep.
We will have the same or more running backs drafted in round 1 of this coming year's rookie draft than we've had in the last 3 seasons combined.
Holy Testicle Tuesday.
All right. So,
wait, what?
All right. I'll say it again. We will have the same or more running backs drafted in the first round of Dynasty Superflex drafts this year than we have over the last 3 classes combined.
So you're talking about like,
I'm saying either 5 or 6. So here's what we had in 2024.
Upcoming draft.
This upcoming draft. Because I got to predict the future. I can't predict what we just did. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't be very bold. I predict Jonathan Brooks will be a first-round pick in the draft.
this prediction's a predicament.
All right, so in 2024, the only running back that we had in the first round consistently was Jonathan Brooks. He was the only one. So we had one. 2023, Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. So we had 3 over the past 2 seasons. In 2022, there was either 2 or 3 in the first round, depending on your draft. Every draft had Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker go in the first round. Sometimes James Cook was in there. So that's why I said the same or more, because I think we are going to have 6 running backs in the first round
6
of drafts this year. That's right. Catching the ball thrown from yourself. So here are the players that I think are more or less a lock to be in the first round.
Ollie Gordon.
Ollie Gordon.
Trevion Henderson.
Trevion Henderson.
Ashton Genty.
Yep.
Quinshon Junkins.
I have him as a could. I don't have him as a lock yet. I only have one other one.
I'm out, Billie Jean.
It is Omarion Hampton, running back from UNC.
I don't know who that is.
He's awesome. But basically, so I have 4 guys that I think are very, very, very likely to be drafted, basically locks to be drafted in the first round. Then I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more that I think have a shot. And there's more guys that could come out of nowhere. But right now, I think other guys that could have a shot, Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State, Devin Neal from Kansas, Trevor Etienne from Georgia, Damian Martinez from Miami, and Nick Singleton from Penn State.
I was bummed. I was watching that Georgia game and I didn't get a chance to watch him this weekend. Is Etienne?
He got in trouble.
Right.
And so
it was a DUI arrest in the offseason or
But that
something.
kid that came in played really well.
Yeah, that freshman
That
came
true
in.
freshman looked
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, he looked really good.
Yeah.
I saw some of him.
But Etienne, I didn't get a chance to see him when he played at Florida.
Good player.
Is he a good player?
Yeah, he's a good player. He doesn't have that same acceleration that his brother has.
Okay.
That 0 to 60. Now I know Etienne doesn't have like the crazy top end speed, but he had that real quick acceleration that made him so good. But he's much more physical than Travis Etienne is.
Okay.
A true freshman.
He started as a true freshman. He's now Etienne. You're talking about?
No.
The other kid.
The other kid.
The kid that
from
came in.
Georgia.
Yeah.
True freshman. Man.
Yeah, he looked really good. He looked really good. So I think that there's a very good chance that we could have 5, 6 running backs in the first round of drafts this year, which would be most we've had in a very, very long time.
It's like me accidentally walking to a nude beach coming out of nowhere. Anyways, my next bold prediction is...
Bold
Prediction.
Predicament.
Sorry, I was thinking of me walking there.
Bold prediction.
6 to 8 o'clock.
6 to 8.
Yeah, not fully there.
No,
Garrett. Come on.
it's just 8.
Come on, we're doing
Is
a
that
show.
to like the side?
Obviously.
A little change in the weather, you know what I'm saying? Not a 10 hut, but like a 10. 10 hut. What does that even mean? 10 hut.
Probably some sort of attention.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask Meeker about that. It's probably some of that Latin stuff.
Could be, man. Don't know.
Till the Hun? All right.
Till
I-
the Hun.
He's just making stuff in this place.
Dude, what?
I'm trying to get to my next bold prediction. You guys are just trying to go off the rails.
Yeah, once.
Yes. Sorry.
I have 2 bold predictions in one.
Cheater.
Ramondre Stevenson will finish outside the top 24 at running back.
Oh.
But not only that, not a single New England Patriots player will finish in the top 24 of their respected positions. Not a single.
Not even Hunter Henry?
Not even Hunter Henry.
Not even Keyshawn Butte?
Butte. So Stevenson and Hunter Henry are the ones that are obviously like the ones that would matter because we wouldn't expect Drake May or any of those
Stevenson,
guys.
I mean, listen, if Hunter Henry he finishes his top 20 at 23, what to do? I'm going to push him outside top 24 to make my bold statement.
Sure.
But not, they're top
so it's
24.
more about Stevenson than anybody else. So
And it comes down to this. Listen, this team is really bad. Their offensive line right now is currently ranked dead last by Pro Football Focus. I mean, It is really bad. It's so bad where Drake May looked really good this preseason times, and
they're like, nope, you're not starting, sir.
Yeah,
we're not
so bad we don't want to risk.
We're not destroying you.
The head coach literally said, like, sometimes, like, yeah, Drake. He's like, Drake. I can't not quote for word, but he basically said, "Hey, Drake looked really good, but sometimes you got to do what's best interest of the player," which makes me seems, hey, we want him to live. We're not Matt sending John Brown to Denver. Like this is we want him to live here. Like no funeral tomorrow, bro. Not tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, just because Ricky Pearsall can take a shot to the chest like that and get through it. Drake May, deceased. So they put him behind it. So this offensive line is horrendous. They have no star players out here. And on top of that, so not only do they have a really bad offensive line, their like defensive matchups, it's brutal. They play 6 games just in their division, right? The AFC East is loaded on defense. The Buffalo Bills, the New York Jets, and the Miami Dolphins. That is 3 top 12 defenses they got to play 6 times. On top of that, they got to play the Colts, the 49ers, and the Texans. That's 9 games. Those defenses, really, really good. And then they have 2 other games against the Bengals and Jags, and their defenses are solid, like middle of the road, top like 16, right around there. So we're talking about 11 games that this offense has to play against. Really good defenses. Mm-hmm. Some elite defenses in the NFL. Outside, if they were playing the Browns, they'd be really up against it.
Yeah.
So abysmal offensive line, journeyman quarterback, backup quarterback that hasn't really able to like hold down the starting job. No defined. Your top two receiving options are most likely going to be rookies in Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. Maybe Pop Douglas, who's a second-year player out there who I like. Yeah. And then you have veteran tight end. You bring Antonio Gibson, who I think has a chance to possibly outscore Ramondre just on being dump-off passes alone as a receiving back. So nothing against Ramondre whatsoever. I think they paid him to be the guy that take the sacrifice for the team. Like, hey, we got to pay somebody out here and carry the football and tote the rock.
Yeah.
I think nothing against any of these players that can't be anything. They're all set up for failure this year. This offensive line's too bad. There's not a single star or like above average player here on offense because Ramondre Stevenson's a very nice running back. He's nothing special.
No, he's no Bijan or CMC.
A very solid running back, an NFL running back
for sure.
A dime a dozen of a starter guy.
Sure.
So for me, this all just to me tells me there's not gonna be a single player here that you're gonna want to start every single week at all. You don't want to start a single Patriot. And if you're in redraft, you literally just want to stream. I don't know who would put out a tweet today. It was funny because I already had my notes down and it said, I don't know if it was Ian or what, but they said, here, all they did was like, here's your weekly streaming defense. And it was just a Patriots schedule.
Opponents.
Yeah. And those are defense, like to start off week 1 versus the Bengals. So like, it's that bad. Like, it's going to be bad. The Patriots are going to have the number 1 pick in NFL draft next year. Which way do they go? I don't know. They just took Drake May. If they were smart, they would trade out of that pick or draft a guy like, I don't know, anybody who's really good. they got holes all over the place. Their defense isn't good. Their offense isn't good. This team is in really bad shape. Bill Belichick is happy to be gone and working for Underdog.
I hope they draft one of those top couple receivers for Drake May's sake, but we'll see.
Well, they should trade back a couple picks and let somebody take Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter or something along those lines.
No doubt, man. It's a wreck there.
Real quick on that. Right now, Ramondre Stevenson, according to Underdog, he's going off the board at running back 23. So I think it's relatively he probably will have a hard time staying as like one of the top 24 guys. He's like right on the cusp there. I believe in him a little bit more than others, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair. And
Hunter Henry, he finished as 19th last year.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to think the offense is going to be a little bit more offensive.
This offense is offensive.
I wish if I had more time for research, it would have been nice to research like when's the last time that a team didn't have a single position finish in the top 24.
I bet there's a decent amount, but some teams just go completely off the rails.
Yeah, like the old school Browns.
Yeah, maybe for sure. I'm sure. But last year it was such a nightmare with the coordinators and all that. Yeah. Like they weren't.
Oh, you mean the defensive coordinator?
They weren't qualified to be running an offense.
That was the weirdest thing. You could tell Bill was on his way out. He was like, Do you want to be offensive coordinator?
Yeah, like who?
Go ahead.
Who wants it? I'll do it. All right, you with the pencil in your.
Like no one's paying attention. She's like, last one to touch your nose is the offensive coordinator. Patricia, dang it!
You've got part of a tree hanging from your head. You look wise.
Fine.
Bailey's Happy's my best option. Fine, whatever.
Matt, we want to bring you back. A defensive coordinator? No, Jared's our defensive coordinator. He's also going to promise to be the head coach in a couple of years, so we can't take that. Well, what do you got open? Oh, you want to coach this offense? What's on offense? Got Hunter Henry.
Got some good defensive players on offense.
We got the Zap Man.
Yeah, Bailey Zappi. Oh, where's he going to be playing next year? Nobody.
No.
Hey, Nerd Herd. This is Rich Dotson. I've got some exciting news for you. Underdog Fantasy is back with their annual Best Ball Mania tournament, and this year it's bigger than ever with a whopping $15 million prize pool. Best Ball Mania 5 is the ultimate fantasy football competition where you draft your team and then sit back and relax. No trades, no waivers, just your best lineup every week automatically set by Underdog. For just $25, you can enter for a shot at the grand prize of $1.5 million. Plus, there are tons of other prizes throughout the season, including $500,000 for the top regular season performer. And guess what? We've got a special offer just for our listeners. Use the promo code NERDS when you sign up, and Underdog will give you up to $250 in bonus cash with your first deposit. Don't miss out. Drafts are happening now. The entries close before the first game of the season. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Sign up with promo code NERDS and start your journey to fantasy football glory today. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. In Tennessee, call 1-800-889-9789.
Where?
All right, what do you got next on the list?
All right, Jalen McMillan supplants Chris Godwin as the wide receiver 2.
This is the dumbest thing I've heard all
causing Tampa Bay to move on from
bold.
Godwin after the season.
That is bold.
That is so bold.
So bold, so crazy.
Please explain yourself, because I do not agree.
I have a
whatsoever.
replacement one, but it's much less bold for this exact same team.
But listen, is it going to be him supplanting him this year? Probably not. But
Well, that's the bold part.
Here's my 2025 bold prediction.
No, but by the end of the season, perhaps. And Chris Godwin is on the last year of his deal. Mm-hmm. He is counting the most, or the third most, I think, from wide receivers against the cap. Yeah, it's the third most at 27.5 million. The only guys that are ahead of him are Cooper Kupp and Deebo Samuel as far as how they count against the cap. And he's got 27 million right now as a cap hit, and 26 and some change as far as the dead money this year. So they really had no choice to hold on to him. Last year he had 131 targets, which was good for 18th. He turned in the 28th best fantasy season last season by a wide receiver in PPR. So the efficiency isn't what you'd want. I looked at other guys that were around him in targets. So I went kind of 10 up and 10 down. All the guys that were above him, Chris Olave, 138. He finished 16th. Adam Thielen, 137 targets. He finished 17th. Hopkins was the guy that was closest, 136. He finished 22nd. But DJ Moore, 136. He finished 6th. Calvin Ridley, 18th on 136 as well. 135 by Mike Evans, his teammate, and he finished 7th. So when you're paying guys that much, and then you bring in, you've been kind of drafting to replace that position for the past couple of seasons. It just in the back of my mind, it kind of leads to, and now they're moving him into the slot. Hopefully that is what clicks him back into being more efficient. I'm not sure if it will or not, or if he's just an okay player getting paid like an elite guy. And if that's the case and he doesn't pull through and come through this season, I think Jalen McMillan is a good enough player. And I really did like what I saw on his tape out of Washington. I think he can take that spot and run with it. And I know I kind of said it might not be this season, but it might. It could be by the end of this season. He is more of a go-to guy than Chris Godwin.
Yeah, I don't see this happening in the least bit. I think the I think this is a really good rebound year for Chris Godwin. I think moving him back to the slot where he naturally belongs, I think he's going to do. I think Chris Godwin has a chance to finish as a high-end wide receiver too in this offense. I think he does really well going into him known as the final year in Tampa Bay. Look to get paid. I think he will play for somebody else in 2020.
And the one thing I wish I did.
Yeah, strongly disagree.
No, and that's fine. And that's what makes this one bold. I know I was going out on a kind of a crazy limb on that one. And this was my boldest one, like in my own brain. Like I didn't really, listen, it's hard to do this show for me because I don't think like this normally. So occasionally I have to like kind of go outside of myself to be bold.
Right.
And that's what this one is. I'm going way out.
Which means you'll probably be right because I'm so strongly against it. You're like, oh, look at these.
That has happened. That does seem to happen to you.
As soon as I got done, I'm like, all right.
As soon as you say 100% it won't happen, it tends to happen.
100% of the time.
It's mostly related. And the fact that they are now locked into Mike Evans for 2 years. It's not just this year. It's this year and next year. You can only put so much money in the wide receiver position, and they drafted this guy that
But he's getting paid this year, Godwin's
getting paid this year, but this is the last year of his deal.
I know. So he's gone into this year, but I don't think he gets overtaken on a team that's still competing for the playoffs.
Straight tooken.
But are they?
I mean,
they made the playoffs last year.
I know.
Barely.
I know.
I mean, they got Baker. They got Baker.
They got Baker. What I wish I would have looked up now that we were talking, I wish I would have looked up Chris Godwin's year-over-year finishes to see how he finished every year. And I know
he had that number 3 overall season back in 2019, I think. Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Right, but that was for sure his high water mark.
Oh,
I feel like
by a lot. He hasn't been a wide receiver one since.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a lot of wide receiver 2 finishes. And to be counting that much against your cap is just, I think, it's just a little bit too much. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why he'll leave after this year. But they're still paying him this year.
They're still paying him. But is he better? He's just not very, he doesn't seem like the most efficient guy out there.
So to phrase it this way, so you're saying like Jalen McMillan over the last 8 games maybe will outperform Chris Godwin.
Sure.
Okay.
I have a couple of things here to say from this week on this guy will outproduce.
Okay.
One of the guys is on the Bucks.
I do have a guy in the Bucks too.
Is it a running back?
Yeah, it is.
Me too.
You guys want to go at the same time?
Right.
No, just say it at the same time.
Hold
1, 2, 3.
Bucky Irving finishes the season with more total points than Rashad White.
I said most likely he will finish the season with more points than Rashad White, but he will 100% outscore him no later than week 12 on.
Okay, so same concept.
Can I use week 12 on for Jalen McMillan as well?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Because that's
week 12.
Week 12, and the reason I went week 12 on is because that's the week after their bye week, and week 9 and week 10 they have 2 brutal matchups against the Chiefs and the 49ers. So I think they're going to play the Chiefs and 49ers week 9, week 10. And by that point, if they haven't already made the switch, which I said, I would not be surprised in the least bit if they took Rashad White to 3.7 yards per carry. And this happens before that. But I think at the very latest, that will be the death end of that because he's playing 2 tough defenses. He hasn't done anything. From the bye week on, they're going to pivot. Same thing like, hey, this isn't working. We're trying to make a playoff push. From week 12 on, we're going to change offense up. Bucky Irvin's our starting running back going forward.
And with that, the thing that is interesting to me because, we talk about the 3.6 yards per carry that he had or whatever. And what I always hear is, yeah, but we got him for his receiving ability. Like, that's why we want him. Then why do you draft one of the only 2 players in college to have over 50 receptions at the running back position? Like, why would that be the guy they would draft? Why wouldn't they draft Braylon Allen? Why wouldn't they draft?
They want a guy that catches the passes, but he's just more efficient running.
Dude, he's gotten so much praise out of camp.
Yeah.
So
they talked about how this is a perfect fit he's the perfect fit for that type of offense. Yeah. And like, it just
so much praise has come out of there. Like doing some of the research on this, I read article after article of coach speak talking to this guy, like, dude, the way he plants his foot and gets upfield is perfect for our offense.
And listen, I saw a lot of the same stuff about Jalen McMillan, and I've seen that kind of all off season, which is why
Bucky Irvin, Matt.
I know, is why I
move along.
I forgot to mention that, but I did read all those reports.
A lot of BS going on around here.
Butt stuff.
All right, so I'm going to do this one now.
Wait, what was your Bucky Irvin take?
I said it.
You said
Bucky Irving finishes the season with more total points than Rashad White.
Oh, that's it. That's the take. No reasoning.
I just talked about him
We just
being
talked
a
about
receiving back.
Oh,
He was
okay.
one of the only ones.
Sorry, I was thinking of BS. So sorry about that.
You're good. You're good.
Bachelor of Science, right?
Yeah. All right. Terry McLaurin. I had to get a Terry McLaurin. I've talked
Yes.
about him all offseason, how high I am on him. Terry McLaurin will finish the season as a wide receiver 1. Currently, he's going off the board as wide receiver 30, and I think he's going to be a top 12 guy. So that's a big jump as far as where he's ranked to where I think he could finish. Here's why. You talked about Cliff Kingsbury earlier with Zach Ertz. Cliff Kingsbury, with his time as a head coach in Arizona, he did not get DeAndre Hopkins until 2022, till 2020. In those 3 seasons, Nuke had 10.7 targets, which was 3rd in the NFL in targets per game. Missed some time in 21, but then coming back in 2022, he had 10 targets per game, which was 2nd in the NFL. So top 3 in targets for their main receiver every year other than the injury years for DeAndre Hopkins. And I would argue that the supporting cast around DeAndre Hopkins was much better than the supporting cast right now around Terry McLaurin. So you had Christian Kirk was there for part of that time. You had Hollywood Brown was there. There were different players in and out of this offense. But when you look at what Terry McLaurin has gotten over the past few seasons, his best season, targets-wise, has only been 7.8 targets. So we're talking about an offense that is willing to feature their top receiver to the tune of 10-plus targets per game. Terry McLaurin's only been getting 7.8 in his best season. Now, if let's just say he doesn't bump up as high as DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins, elite level receiver. I don't think Terry McLaurin's quite the receiver that DeAndre Hopkins is. So let's say he gets to 9 targets per season or per game this season. 9 targets per game. If he had 9 targets per game, there were only 12 players this season that had 9 targets or more per game. Those players averaged 18.36 points per game. Monster numbers. And there was only one player amongst that group that had under 15 points a game, and that was Garret Wilson with the horrific quarterback situation that they had.
Real bad.
And so I don't see a scenario to me where Terry McLaurin is going to average less than 15 points per game. I don't. I would be very, very surprised to see him average less than that. And if he gets anywhere close to 16, he's going to be a wide receiver 1. But if he even just gets the average of those guys that at 9 or more targets per game, that's 18.36. So I think he has a huge season. There's no other wide receivers to throw the ball to right now on this team. He's going to get a ton of targets, and he's going to do a lot with them because even the targets he got before, so many errant passes from Sam Howell, didn't have the big playability with all that. Jayden Daniels can get the ball down the field. Jayden Daniels is going to be more accurate than Sam Howell was.
He'll be the most accurate quarterback Terry McLaurin's played with.
Absolutely. He had Dwayne Haskins. Yeah, he has had, we've talked about the Jets. You could argue he's had the worst quarterback situation that anybody's had over the course of their career.
Yeah, this is a bold prediction I completely get on board with. Everything you said lays it out perfectly how this could come to fruition.
Yeah, no doubt. And just for reference, the guys that at 9, 10, 11, 12, as far as fantasy points per game, 16.1, 15.6, 16.4. Nico Collins was at 17.4, but it drops right back down.
Because he missed a game.
He missed 2 games.
Yeah.
So you're right on point. I think with the numbers and everything like that, I think it makes a lot of sense. So I could definitely see that happening. There's just no one else there. It really boils down to that.
Funnel.
Yeah.
If Jayden Daniels is going to be that good, then somebody catching the ball has to be that good.
Well, it's funny you say that because my next bold
I knew it.
prediction,
I was trying to put on a T for you there, Rich.
And I knew you were going to do Terry McLaurin. It's why I didn't
do Jayden Daniels yet.
No, it's why I didn't do Terry McLaurin.
Oh, gotcha.
Because I had the same thing. I was like, oh, Terry McLaurin could be a bold prediction here. But my bold prediction is going to piggyback off that. There's no way he could be a wide receiver 1 without his quarterback. And my bold prediction is,
unless he throws to himself,
not too crazy because I've been preaching Jayden Daniels now since I watched his rookie tape. I said this is a guy I could argue taking over Caleb Williams in fantasy football for those purposes. My bold prediction: Jayden Daniels will finish as a top 6 fantasy football quarterback, and really do that. He just needs to average about 20 points per game to do so. Last year, we saw Jordan Love finish his QB5 on an average of 19.4 points per game. Purdy at 6 with 19.2. So 20 points per game. Is that a ton? Not so much for a rushing quarterback. It's very easily attainable. And listen, this defense is not good. So this is garbage points and shootouts we're going to look at for Jayden Daniels as well, which will help Terry McLaurin.
Absolutely.
And, bringing Cliff Kingsbury in, this is somebody who, all 4 seasons when he was in Arizona as a head coach there with Kyler Murray finished all 4 seasons with Cliff Kingsbury is a top 12 fantasy football quarterback, even as a rookie.
And I think they're different players, but they play a similar style of game, so I think he's going to know how to coach that.
Really good, accurate football downfield and very mobile. So when you look at quarterbacks that run the football, over the history, these are the guys that finish as high ends. We saw just last year, when Justin Fields finished as quarterback 6, he rushed for 1,143 yards. We've seen guys like Jalen Hurts come out in his rookie year, like when he was in early on, like his completion percentage was not good. He was like almost at 50%, but it was his rushing ability to help really propel him and to be a high-end fantasy football quarterback. When you look back at Cam Newton, this is a guy who never really threw over. He only threw over 4,000 yards. That was his rookie season. But if you take out his rookie season, those years from 2012 to 2018, where he only threw for about like in the middle of 3,000 yards, he was a top 6 QB 4 out of 7 years. At top 6, still a QB1 other years. The same reason you have guys like, you mentioned earlier, if you go back to a guy like Taysom Hill, right? Like when he was brought in last year, when he was playing quarterback, he averaged over 20 points, almost 22 points per game. Why? Not because of Taysom Hill's quarterback ability, because of his rushing ability. And when you look at Jayden Daniels, when we watched him and we watched his tape from the college grade, we said back in February, March, this is one of the best rushing quarterbacks we've seen come out in a very long time. We said there's a very good argument to be made. The day he takes his first snap in the NFL, he's the second best rushing quarterback outside of Lamar Jackson. Yep. That's what we said about him.
Most dynamic.
Okay. Yep. And when you look at these guys, when historical data here, I wish I would know I got the stat so I can credit the person. Now I feel like an ass. But anyways, I saw a stat out here said every quarterback with 100 or more rushing attempts in the last decade has averaged at least 18 fantasy points per start.
Yeah.
Minimum.
And that's huge.
And do you think Jayden Daniels is going to have 100 rushing attempts?
I would think you would want to use that. Yep.
I think he'll have 100 rushing attempts by week 10.
Yeah. So that average and with his ability to throw the football downfield, I think this gets him right around that 20 points per game range, which is make him a top 6 fantasy football quarterback. I have him all over my redraft leagues. It's not as bold right now. Definitely even like you're just a casual like fantasy fan because like he's on everybody's sleepers list now. Like it's everybody. Hey, my sleeper at quarterbacks. It's like everybody. Anywhere you turn on the TV station or read an article, who's your quarterback at sleep? Who's your sleeping quarterback? It's Jayden Daniels for everybody. And I get it because most people don't know rookies when you're talking redraft. But for like even here at Dynasty, we've been talking about Jayden Daniels an absolute ton. It's the reason why I was able to give up Caleb Williams so easily for Marvin Harrison and a pick in one league because I had Jayden Daniels too, right, and Pat Mahomes, which helps. But like it made that transition a little bit easier. So I think Jayden Daniels does it. I think he plants a flag, sees it, his ADP skyrocket in Dynasty, and has a top 6 year as a rookie. We're going to see the same thing we saw with CJ Stroud. Yep. We're going to see with Jayden Daniels. And I'll go further, bold prediction. I think by this time next year, ADP-wise in startups, people will draft Jayden Daniels ahead of CJ Stroud.
It's definitely a possibility. I mean,
give me them legs.
The only tier that I would say, like, I just don't see how he'd get to it is the Mahomes Allen tier. But I think the quarterback position right now is so in flux. So, like, there's so many good young quarterbacks. And so guys like that, Jayden Daniels, are getting pushed down to 11, 12, 13 in dynasty rankings. But he has the tools to skyrocket up that, because the difference between him and CJ Stroud and Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts and those guys, like, there's not a huge difference in those players. So, like, why couldn't he jump 8-10 spots in rankings? Like, yeah, I think it's a real possibility.
I saw Evan Silva talking about it recently. He was like a real brief clip. Adam Schefter retweeting. I was like, oh, Evan's doing the Schefter podcast. It's sweet. Let me see what Evan had to say. And one of it was like, hey, like, give me one tip. He's like, this is a year like you don't want to waste a pick in round like 4 on a quarterback. He's like, this is one of those weird years where like I feel really comfortable like with 12 quarterbacks. He's like, you can just sit back and get Jayden Daniels in like round 7 and 8. Jordan Love's going back in that range. Brock Purdy, Jared Goff. Like, he's like, there's no point in wasting a high pick on a quarterback when you can get one later.
There's some good high-end play.
Yeah, there's 12 legit 12 quarterbacks this year that I feel really comfortable with. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And there's a couple guys outside that top 12.
I was going to say, even outside of that,
feel just as comfortable with.
I can't tell you how many of my underdog best ball teams have some combination of Tua, who was at 15, Jared Goff, who was at 16, and Justin Herbert, who was at 17. Like, and I think even Kirk Cousins is at 18. Like, so many of my teams have 2 of those 4 quarterbacks as my quarterbacks.
Yeah,
for best
Brock
ball.
Purdy's another great grab. And, and honestly, I got a guy who can get dead last the most, who also I have in my bold predictions.
All right.
We'll talk about that pervert in a little bit.
Why don't you go, Garrett? My next one just kind of stinks.
You had some really good ones in the first
This
show.
last one, I'm looking at it, I'm like, dude, this is terrible.
All right.
I forced it.
I need one more. Give me one more. All right, here we go. I don't know if this will be my last one or not. I've got others I could use if I had to, but if it's my last one, I wanted to make sure I got this one in. And this kind of goes back to a point that we were talking about before, Rich, how we feel like this is maybe the safest the tight end position has been in a long time. I am predicting that we will have the most tight ends over 200 total points in a single season since this began tracking on Fantasy Pros back in 2013. But we didn't have much before that. So the most we've ever had in 2013 and in 2023 was 6. I'm projecting 7 to 8 guys hit that 200 total point mark this season, which is a lot for fantasy football to get over 200 points at the tight end position, because that means you're averaging about 12 or so points per game at the position and not missing any time. So obviously some of those guys will miss time, but I could see those guys getting 13, 14 points per game this year. But I think we're going to see that all the way till tight end 7 or tight end 8, guys that are still giving you 12 points per game, which is, it makes it a little bit easier to breathe at the position. Like, if you don't get the tight end 1 or 2, you still have a chance to get a very good tight end.
Okay. And you're not doing your last one?
I'll just throw it in at the end when I'm saying adios.
Okay. You guys just want to go rapid fire?
Yeah.
I have 2 other ones that I don't need. Yeah.
I'll start the rapid fire. Xavier Weaver, undrafted free agent out of Colorado.
Uh-huh.
And will emerge as the slot wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals by the end of the season. He's an undrafted guy. He was only one of 49 that even made a roster this year.
It's impressive that you knew that he was even on the team.
Exactly. I liked his tape out of Colorado. That's why I've kind of had an eye on him. He made the team. I think he could be their slot wide receiver.
Xavier Weaver, pick him up. Slot eats this year.
There you go. Only other ones that I have a decent amount of information on it, but it's probably my boldest one.
Give it to us. Give us the information.
So
we don't have to rapid fire. You could just take your time.
I have one.
I just don't feel super confident in it. Like,
it's a bold prediction. There's no confidence needed.
All right.
Matt said Chris Godwin's going to get benched for
there you go.
McMillan.
Right. Yeah, come on.
Najee Harris.
This guy's on mushrooms.
Najee Harris finishes the season as a running back 1. So, reason I have this, to me, running back 10 through like 24 are basically the same tier. Like, I don't see a lot of those guys much different than I see the guys that I have at 20, 21, 22. Like, you know, there's a lot of guys like Javonte, Najee Harris, those types of players that are in the 20s.
How dare you?
And then you have guys, well, I don't have them there.
Okay.
Don't worry. Other people have them there.
I swear I thought we were going to have a Javonte. Between one of you guys, I was 100% sure.
No Javonte this year.
Javonte. Bold prediction, running back 1, but here we are.
No Javonte this year.
I thought he was going to do it. He thought I was going to do it. Nobody did it.
You, me, you. So, look, here's the reason. Like I said, you look at the Javontes, the Najee Harrises down in the 20s. You look at guys like Isaiah Pacheco and Rashad White. And, like, I don't think the points per game between a lot of those players are going to be more than 1.5 points. Like, I think it's going to be very, very close. And I think a lot of those players in that tier that are a little bit lower could easily jump into sneaking in at that spot 10, 11, 12. Arthur Smith has had an RB1 as a head coach or an offensive coordinator every single year of his career, except for the Tyler Algier year. Every other, like, he even had Cordero Patterson as a running back 1 on the season. So I think somebody could do it. Jalen Warren is already dealing with hamstring issues and
practicing again.
He is practicing again, but those ligament issues, they tend to linger. Like every once in a while they'll be fine and you'll be good, but a lot of those guys, once that starts happening, you see that those soft tissue things like that happens a lot during the season. I could see him missing a decent amount of time here and there just with trying to get that healthy and get that right. And the thing that I did not realize, and this is kind of the last point of the Najee Harris, PFF actually predicts the Steelers' offensive line to be a top 10 unit this year. They use 2 first-round picks 2 years in a row on that offensive line. I don't think they're going to throw the ball like crazy. I think they're going to run the football. Najee Harris fits the build of the guys that he typically likes, those big physical running backs. Algier was a big physical running back. Bijan's a big physical running back. King Henry, obviously a big physical running back. He fits the mold and the build of guys that Arthur Smith typically likes. So I think there's a chance Najee Harris finishes as a running back.
Was it their guard that tore a pec? But he isn't going to miss the whole season.
He's not going to miss. Yeah. It wasn't a season-ending one like they originally thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, dude, when you got George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth and that's it, and then Russ Wilson's your quarterback, you're going to run the ball.
Something's going to happen.
And he checks down quite a bit. Russ Wilson, older quarterbacks tend to check down a little bit.
15% of his throws, dude, went behind the line of scrimmage. Went behind the line of scrimmage. Yeah, behind 15%. That's
a bad ADOT.
No, that's not a good one.
That's bad.
All right, ready? Want me to finish out all mine?
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead. I only have one other one, and based on something you said earlier, I feel like it could line up with yours. So I don't have much on it other than reading off Greg Roman's pass versus run stuff. Which
then I have a lot of stuff here on that one.
Okay,
it's my most in depth one. Are you talking about J.K. or Gus?
J.K. Dobbins.
Me too. Okay,
I have him as a top 18 back in 2024.
I have literally running back 18 or better.
There we go.
I wrote running back 18 or better.
There you go.
It's crazy. So
that's wild.
I'll start there. I have J.K. Dobbins as running back 18 or better, with Austin Eckler vacating 230 touches alone. This is a guy who came in. It's not just the touches, because I think Gus Edwards is going to be the guy there.
He's going to be
as a main starter running back. But both, if you look at the depth chart that came out today, which is Tuesday, they listed J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards as starters on that offense. And what Eckler really leaves behind that doesn't excite me, it's not about the whole 230 touches. It's the 74 targets that he leaves behind. And you go, well, what's going to happen in Greg Roman offense? What's going to happen out here in this offense? And, it's funny because I went back and I was reading some articles about like Greg Roman going into 2023 beforehand. And I was reading some interviews about Greg Roman because I was really trying to research some of like, hey, how does Greg Roman want to attack the running game? Like, that was my interest. And then that went okay, because my first instinct was like, I'm going to make Gus Edwards my top 18 running back. But I was like, no, I'm going to get bolder. I'm going to go J.K. Dobbins. But like, how does J.K. Dobbins win in a passing game with Eckler leaving? And like, how does Greg Roman view that? You know what I mean? Like, that was my question. So I went back. I was like reading some interviews with Greg, and Greg said like, hey, going to that 2023 season before, he's like, I had really big plans to deploy J.K. Dobbins in a pass catch and roll to really maximize the way he is in open field, which is what we've always talked about J.K. Dobbins, right? Like in open field, like he has that matrix ability coming out of college where like he was able to get sideways. And
absolutely.
Greg Roman literally had a quote on there like, hey, I designed a scheme to maximize J.K. in the passing game so we can actually maximize effort when he's best in open field. And I want him to complement Gus Edwards because I like Gus Edwards' downhill bruising running style. And that's how this offense is going to look. Then Dobbins hurts his knee in the preseason. That's derailed. So I look back to last year then and how Gus Edwards attacked it. And Greg Roman. Gus Edwards in that offense with Greg Roman had 13 targets. Justice Hill had 39 targets.
That's who I was going in my brain.
In that offense. Yeah. But if you take it, all the other running backs, like the Melvin Gordon had a couple, Keenan Mitchell, the total amount of targets these running backs had in this offense were 72 targets, which coincidentally, Austin Eckler left behind 74 targets in this offense. So there's a very big role. Not only will that J.K. Dobbins will get carries as a running back, he is going to be the one that's going to get all the pass catching ability here in this offense. And we mentioned earlier how many vacated targets are in this whole offense with like 365, somewhere in that range, or 317.
309. I thought it was 395.
Sorry, the number one most vacated targets there in LA. So with not a lot of receiving options here, which would go a quarterback with foot issues to start the season, a good offensive line, I could very easily see them utilizing J.K. Dobbins in this offense, in this pass catching role, which would propel him to be running back 18 or better. And J.K. has come out. He's like, listen, man, I know I tore my Achilles, but I know it sounds weird. I feel faster than ever. I feel as good as I've ever felt. So, and listen, that's talk. Everybody can say that after coming off injury, but like, I'm gonna listen to what I want to listen to because I'm a cherry pick. So
you got to cherry pick on the bold predictions,
so
man.
For me, all this points to J.K. Dobbins, just like you have. It's so funny. I wrote
18.
Running
So
back
funny.
18 or better.
Top
18.
half of the second, high end RB2.
Okay. Next bold prediction.
All right.
Mike Williams will finish as a top 24 PPR receiver.
I'm all for it.
You know, with Garrett Wilson seeing all that top cornerback coverage, it's really going to free up Big Mike out there. And for me, like we said, take the top off with Justin Herbert, how he fit that so well and how he excelled with Justin Herbert. Well, you bring in Aaron Rodgers, and it's great. And what's really good is with this really good defense, this revamped offensive line with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, they're going to see a lot of red zone opportunities. Garrett Wilson's going to be covered up in the red zone. Mike Williams is going to eat in the red zone. With how big he is there anybody that throws a prettier back shoulder pass than Aaron Rodgers?
I don't know. I can't think of one.
Yeah. Mike Williams is going to eat there if he stays healthy. Because of the touchdowns, Mike Williams is going to finish as a top 24 PPR wide receiver. Another one I have here is Kyron Williams will fall out of the top 16 running backs this season. I don't love the fact that he was assigned kick returner duties already with injury history that he has. That with addition of Blake Corum, and Blake Corum's such similarities to the two, I think they'll split some time. I think this increases the odds of Kyron Williams getting injured, which he already missed multiple games last year with injuries. Add him to the kick returner. That alone is going to take some of his touches away, just to give like, hey, you just return his kick. Let's get Blake in there for a couple carries. I think it moves Kyron Williams outside the top 16. I think Colby Parkinson becomes a viable option in fantasy football this season. And I'll finish it off with Deshaun Watson finishes as a top 12 fantasy football quarterback in 2024.
Sorry, excuse me.
Still with Nick Chubb on the pup list. Jerome Ford is fine, but he falls in that Rachaad White category for me. Just not very efficient. They bring in Ken Dorsey. This was a team last year that already was in top 7 plays of offense per game. They want to increase that. Hence why they brought in Ken Dorsey, and they want to throw the football in Cleveland a ton more. It's the reason they went out and traded for Jerry Jeudy. It's why they tried to trade for Brandon Ayuk. And listen up, Amari Cooper was never a part of that trade deal for Ayuk. It was never part of the offer. So the Browns plan on having Jerry Jeudy, Brandon Ayuk, and Amari Cooper in that offense. It probably been Elijah Mitchell or Elijah Moore if I had to guess. But Elijah Moore and David Njoku, the Browns are going to throw a ton. Out of 90% of the games that Deshaun Watson played in last year, he was a quarterback one in every one of those games. He brings about a 40 yards per game average in the rushing ability as well. This is a player that has fallen completely by the wayside in Underdog and in redraft because he hasn't done anything in 4 years, which is viable and very, very fair. My bold prediction, he gets back. He's a quarterback one. Browns win the Super Bowl, baby.
I was waiting for that one. I was like, where's your last prediction?
There it is. Now we can say goodbye.
We'll be back next week breaking down
week one.
Week 1
of the NFL. Woo! May all your dynasty teams stay healthy. May all your teams come up with W's unless you listen and play me. I hope you lose. I hope you lose miserably. I hope I destroy you, make you so embarrassed you want to trade away all your players and flip it and rebuild in week 1.
Adios.